5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Peace and blessings, Alpha Quabo, here at Radio Diamond. This is the Diamond News. I'm your brother, I'm your friend, I'm your Prince Alpha Quabo right here from UK to the world. Give it to you live right here at Radio Diamond. So I want everybody to promote this message and tell the family, especially tell the black family, that we're having this private conversation here to be able to break it down about coronavirus. We see brothers and sisters in panic. We understand it. We see brothers and sisters in panic, brothers and sisters frustrated. So that's why we said, let's break it down. Let's bring having this respectful conversation, bringing specialists that understand what we're talking about. Obviously, because we understand this coronavirus is now a worldwide pandemic. So the question to you that we're asking today, family from all over the world, the question today, as you can see right in your screen, coronavirus is a chemical weapon to depopulate the Earth planet, the planet Earth. True or false? But, we're bringing to you a specialist, a doctor, that really that can break it down for us, and how can we prevent it, how can we take care of ourselves, all the information that you need to know here at Radio Diamond. First of all, tell us who you are, even though we already had the introduction, but please tell us who you are and what exactly you're doing.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. My name is Mr. Mohamed Ibrahim Kamara. I'm an emergency medicine consultant, and I work in Greater Manchester.
Wow. So obviously, we're talking about this this outbreak, this virus that went worldwide. Now it's a worldwide pandemic. So the question to you, first of all, how, in your point of view, how we have to really worry about this this virus? We're seeing a lot of death going on around the world. African countries, there's different countries, as we show on the map in the beginning, different African countries now. We got cases in Africa. So the question is, we have to really worry about, especially now in African continent?
Well, when you say worry, it's important to understand that panicking is not the answer. But worried, yes. Everybody has to be worried, because every other person, even including family members, is a potential carrier of this virus. So it is a worry. The world is on uncharted territory, and obviously this is something that the world hasn't had to deal with for a long time. I think if I can equate it, it equates to the plague that happened, was it 1918 or something like that? So clearly it is big, and it hasn't peaked. So indeed, it's a legitimate source of worry.
Wow.
However, do not panic.
So talking about especially the African countries, going to the African country first of all. Obviously, by you being doctor and dealing with a lot of cases here in the UK and also in Africa as well. So what do you feel about what do you see in terms of this viral is expanding into into our continent. So, what measures the African governments should take care of to protect our people, even in our homeland?
Well, I mean, we have to worry because China is a hub, and the Afro or Chino-Africa relationship is obviously, if you like, increasing. It's getting well established. The Chinese are well established in Africa as we speak. We mentioned neocolonialism and all that, but in actual fact, the Chinese are the ones that are doing it now. So wherever there are Chinese people, this is not being racist or derogatory or being discriminatory. China is a hot hub for business. So people go to China, and sadly, when they go to China, there are things there that you pick up, and obviously the Chinese will go to Africa, and so this is an imported illness. This is an imported disease. Therefore, Africa has to be worried. Africa has to be prepared for the uprising, or if you like, unleashing of this. People who went to China for the Chinese New Year clearly would have been infected, and they obviously would have transmitted this when they came back to Africa where they work. So clearly Africa has to be prepared for this. The question is, are we prepared for it?
So that leads to the question in terms of the African health system, because we know in majority of the African countries the health system is not as great as we should be. So we understand a lot of some countries they went through civil war and fighting between one another. So what is your take about the African health system in different in different countries? Are we ready? Are we ready for this viral?
I don't think that's a question I need to answer. If I mean developed countries, the likes of Italy, the likes of China, the likes of UK, where we are telling you that we are on uncharted territory. This is new for everybody. I don't want to even consider the preparedness of African countries. I doubt very much anybody can tell you that any country is prepared for this, pandemic. So Africa definitely lags behind, way behind, in terms of preparedness. If the first world cannot cope, I can't even tell you what the third world will be able to do or achieve.
So what's the advice as professional doctor here in the UK? What advice you giving to you can give to the African government, especially the health system? What advice you can give it to them to be prepared for this pandemic?
Well, in the World Health Organization, which, as you know, is a World Health Organization, clearly has some advice, has some operational directives that they've actually issued out to each and every country, and these have to be implemented. These have to be followed to the letter. There are the needs for drills, safety drills, probably simulations, and obviously, if possible, maybe appoint ministers who are well versed with the way to, if you like, deal with or manage an epidemic of this magnitude or pandemic of this magnitude. And of course, how you rally the forces, how do you manage to get people to deploy their skills in areas that they are not normally used to, is what actually determines your success or your failure in dealing with such a pandemic.
So obviously being here in the UK, explain to us how's the situation here in the UK, because we're seeing the government is planning to shut down schools and public places. What is your take about the measure of the UK government, especially here in England? What is your take about it?
The situation is fluid. it's actually developing on a daily basis. If anything, as I said, this situation hasn't peaked yet. So if you notice, last week there was nothing said about school closures, and even up till yesterday, it was agreed that the schools partially would close, yeah, for the foreseeable future. But then this evening at 5 o'clock, according to the Prime Minister and his team, it was then decided that all the restaurants should close, all the pubs should close, and of course there is the possibility that maybe the London Underground, I think some of the routes or some of the stations have been closed, or some of the routes have been closed. Now, I don't think it will come down to a full closure, not just yet, but clearly it's heading that way. But as I said, the most important thing in this whole situation is education. And education, what I mean by that is that you need to educate people as to what this virus is, how you can sort of prevent it spreading, how you can prevent it worsening, and how you can actually get things back to, if you like, a semblance of normality. These are the things you need to be doing. As I say, education, 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 and ensure that people are listening, people are doing what, you know, the experts and the specialists are saying. Like, for example, personal hygiene. If you used to wash your hands 4 times, perhaps you need to double that. For example, if you used to be close to people, perhaps you need to think about social distancing. Yeah? If you know that you've got symptoms, then clearly you need to be thinking about self-isolation. If you've got elderly parents who you know are vulnerable, or you have even young people who you know are on the high-risk category, clearly you need to know what to do with that, i.e. you need to put them in self-isolation. You need to avoid them getting in contact. And if you are already symptomatic, for example, you're coughing, you're sneezing, remember when you sneeze, if you sneeze into your hands, obviously the virus stays on the hands. And so if you shake somebody else's hand, or you touch that person's door or plastics that is around the area, you transmit it. Yeah? So if you sneeze into maybe your elbow, that helps you a lot. You see what I mean? Rather than sneezing to your hands. If you got a tissue, sneeze into the tissue, make sure you bin that tissue, not leave it out. So these are all bits and bobs, really. Yeah, I can talk and go through all of that, but there's a lot of things to do. But main thing is education. Try and get people to understand that if you feel the symptoms, don't just come to the hospital. It's not helping you at all. If anything, you who has got the symptoms might have a different thing. You may have a cold, not necessarily the coronavirus. However, by you staying at home and isolating yourself, you're restricting the illness, and you can recover from that without you spreading it. So when you come to the hospital, what you're doing then is spreading it to other people. That doesn't help. So you need to know that you need to self-isolate, and that will be 7 to 14 days.
Wow. So obviously, talking about the atmosphere in the hospital. So the question to you, obviously, as doctors, you advising people to stay home. So you're advising people to stay home. So how's
the best advice you can give anybody?
How's the atmosphere right now? By you, obviously you might be spending days and nights in hospitals, tackle these cases. How's the atmosphere in hospitals, London, Manchester, and obviously throughout Europe? What is the atmosphere right now?
Oh, it is hectic. Obviously, we're all concerned. Yeah, we need to be prepared. We need to understand that, look, we're in this together. We look after you, and likewise we want you to look after us. Therefore, we stay in the hospital for you to be able to stay at home. We look after the sick ones in hospital, and you who's just got panic attack or maybe symptoms of something else, or not, or even if you have the symptoms of the coronavirus but you're not unwell, i.e. to the extent where you're on your knees, then clearly the best thing to do is, as I say, is to stay at home and go through the usual self-routine. You can, take care of yourself, wash your hands more frequently, avoid getting in contact with people that are even in the family. If you order things, they leave them outside for you. You come and do whatever it is you have to do. So you minimize it. And as we all know, the death rate, this is what we talk about, the mortality rate of this really nasty, really resistant virus is 2%. Now, there are other viruses that are more lethal, like the MERS virus. It's 35% mortality. The SARS virus has got a higher mortality. The swine flu, all of those have a higher mortality. But this one, this COVID-19, has got 2% mortality. So a lot of people will survive, no questions about that. However, the ones that are of a high risk category, i.e. the ones that are had transplant, the ones that have got cancer, the ones that have got chronic stress problems, the ones that have got chronic heart problems, the asthmatics, the TB, the heart failure, the elderly who have got, multiple problems. These are ones that really need to look after themselves. They need to be, not quarantine. Quarantine is a very harsh word. Need to be self-isolating. Avoid it. So I know we love to be with our families and all that, but you can, as we've got technology now, we can actually Skype them. We can do FaceTime and all that. Only so that we can actually reduce, the amount of spread. Because as things stand, the worry is that 4 out of 5 people that got infected from people that did not know they had it. So the carriers are the worrying factor. Because I can have it, you can have it. And that is why it's important to remember that carrying this illness when you are asymptomatic, i.e. no symptoms, is the worst thing. Because you don't know you have it, and you're passing it on from person to person. So potentially what we're dealing with in hospitals is that every other person is potentially a source of an infection. Therefore, you need to treat every other individual, even colleagues, that they are potentially a source of infection. So you need to be ultra prepared for this. Simple as that.
Wow. So brothers and sisters, as you notice, our show is a worldwide show. We're having brothers and sisters from all over the world watching this show at this moment, because it's extremely important for us to really understand it and then learning from each other. Each one teach one, each one reach one. So we also have our special guest on the phone in the United States, our elder, to really break it down, the atmosphere over there in the United States. Good evening. Tell us your name and who we're talking to, real quick.
Excuse me. My name is Joseph Waker. I'm the CEO and the founder of Waker Foundation. I'm also the executive manager of Waker CD LLC. I'm also the owner, CEO of Ghost Racing Drag Racing Team out of Washington, D.C. Just to name a few of my accomplishments and accolades.
So obviously this show is an interactive show. So we have in our Dr. Kamara here in the UK. Also, obviously, because we decided to call you to hear your thoughts of what's going on in the United States as well, because it's important to break it down, because this show is about family. It's about us educating ourselves, just so we can pass on the information to the others. So, quick question to you before we move on to our doctor here in the UK. How's the situation over there in the United States? How our family is reacting to this worldwide pandemic? Real quick.
Well, right now everybody is in a panic state. There's a limitation on the amount of toiletries and water and stuff that you can buy. People are wearing masks. They're wearing gloves. They're staying 6 feet away from people. They're doing everything that's necessary to be done at this time. The businesses and stuff is closed. The fast food restaurants, they are limited to drive-through only, so you cannot go in and sit down and eat at any of the fast food restaurants at this time. So the United States is taking this very seriously. One of the problems that I have is with the politicians, with the president of the United States not giving people the proper information on how to deter the virus at this early state. But I'll let the doctor talk about what he's going to talk about, and then before the end of the show, I hope that you come back to me so I can give you my perspective on what it's going to take in order to curtail the virus as much as possible when a person thinks that they have it compared to when someone actually has it, and it goes through all of its final ports before it gets actually into your lungs, into your immune system.
Right. So moving back in the UK here real quick. Stay there, Elder. Moving back here in the UK. Dr. Kamara, talking about the you mentioned China. You mentioned China. So the Chinese effort worldwide is really about business. So what is your take about the Chinese influence into this pandemic? Because people blaming China. What is your take about the Chinese government and what the African governments as well as the Chinese government are doing to tackle this issue?
Well, I'm not a politician, and I don't quite know what you are, if you like, alluding to. But as I say, China is one of the, if you like, trade hubs in the world. Yeah, and therefore, as I say, people converge from all, if you like, areas, walks of life. They converge into China, and obviously, as I say, the first case was obviously, if you like, determined or maybe diagnosed in China. And obviously, China was the first one to be afflicted by this. And then, of course, it went worldwide because of the fact that this is an airborne disease. It's one of the few viruses that we found out that has got now human-to-human transmission. There are other viruses that just have animal to human. So if mankind doesn't sort of enter into the habitat of these animals, then clearly you're not likely to contract that. But now we found out there is human-to-human transmission, which is really the scary bit about it. And as I say, if you're traveling from one continent to another, well, obviously what you're doing is you're carrying it. And because you don't know you have the virus, i.e. you're just a carrier, you don't have the symptoms, as I said, that's the most dangerous position to be in. Because innocently and indirectly, you're actually infecting other people. And that's how this thing has spread. And you can see what they did in order to actually restrict this thing or maybe narrow it down and make sure it actually gets wiped out or maybe controlled, if you like. They then created lockdowns. Yeah, a whole country was locked down, or a whole town, if you like, was locked down. And so obviously, not unless you had critically important errands to run, you were definitely going to be indoors. And that is the only way you can actually control it. So they did that, and now they've succeeded, and they actually have reduced number of daily diagnoses of this virus. As I say, as we speak now, there is the fear that there is another upward trend. So it's like a second wave of reinfection that is happening as I speak now. And that is what they want to try and avoid and address before it spirals out of control.
Wow. So that leads to the questions. I'm going first with the elder in the United States. Obviously, you being a community leader, community organizer, the question we're asking in this special show today is, coronavirus is a chemical weapon to depopulate the planet Earth. True or false, and why? Elder in the United States, what is your take about it?
That's true. They're trying to get rid of as many people as they can, as fast as they can, and the older population they're really trying to get rid of, and also they're trying to get rid of the black population as well as the Hispanic population as well. And I'll tell you about that when we get a little further into the show today.
That's why, because we got about 15 minutes left. So that's why we really want to educate our brothers and sisters to have a real understanding about this virus. Just a simple viral, or is actually a chemical weapon? Because we've seen a lot of videos going around, and people not really understanding what's going on. That's why we're asking this question: is that really a chemical weapon, or just a normal virus that we have to tackle in? So that's why we're asking the right question to our family, and we respectfully demanding the right answer.
Okay, the right answer to that is this, and if the doctor was giving you honest information, he would give you this information here. The virus is a cell, a cell that's made up of very fragile spores. These spores can be taken out by heat. These spores only grows in the cavity, in the nasal, and in the passages of our mouth. It serves us as a host for the first few days before it actually gets into our lungs. So if the doctor was giving you some true information, he would give you this information here. He would tell you to go home, and basically you could do a couple of different things. One of the things would be, in order to kill this host, all you have to do is get some boiling hot water, put a little lemon in it, or a little orange peel in it, a little sea salt, a little onion, or a little garlic in it. Bring this water to a boil and breathe it in for about 15 to 20 minutes. And if we do that like every hour for like 2 or 3 times a day, it will kill this host within itself. We don't have to go out, and it don't have to be a pandemic. We don't have to go out and worry about us getting sick and passing this host on to our family and our friends and stuff. This will actually cure and kill this host that enters our body. This host is nothing more than the common cold, the flu, or anything like that. Another thing is, if we're bold enough and brazen enough, we can go get into a sauna and inhale the hot air. That hot air will burst this bubble. That is actually, that's all the cell is. It's a bubble, and it only materializes after 9 to 14 days before it actually get into our lungs and turn into more susceptible for us not to be able to get around and function with under our own power. So if the doctor was going to give us some great information, he would tell us, look, boil you some water, put you some lemon in it, put you some peppermint in it, put you some onion in it, put you something in it, inhale this for 15 to 20 minutes, take as much of this stuff in as you can, and it will actually kill this host. So that is what it's going to take. It's nothing more than a common cold or a flu symptom. That's all this thing is.
So bring it back to our doctor here in the UK. Obviously, the same question to you. Is really a chemical weapon to depopulate the planet Earth? What is your take about it? So it's actually a chemical weapon to depopulate the planet Earth, true or false, and why? Dr. Kamara.
It's absolutely arrant nonsense. If anybody actually tells you that COVID-19 is a biological or biochemical warfare agent, then clearly they're deluded. The question is, why would China create a biochemical agent like that for it to backfire like it has backfired? Doesn't make any sense. Even if economic sense, doesn't make any. It's like economic suicide, because the whole world, you've not even started to actually count the economic problems this virus has created. So if China was looking at depopulating the world, or maybe, what's the word for it now, causing recession with them being at the top, well, clearly they've not thought it through, and it won't work like that. Because as things stand, it has been declared a pandemic. Yeah, a pandemic means either involving a whole area, i.e. one country, or the whole wide world. Now we're in England. We're in England. We're suffering that. Africa is suffering. Asia is suffering. Australia is suffering. Yeah. The only place I think they haven't diagnosed any of this is Antarctica. So I don't quite understand why anybody would say this is warfare to depopulate the world. It's arrant nonsense, and I would not encourage that. I want people to understand that, look, we are dealing with a dangerous virus. Do not underestimate the power of this virus.
No. So the question to you, doctor, we understand we understand the danger of this virus. We totally understand it. That's why by being spreading all over the world, so people are not asking questions. So, in your humble thought, this virus just popped up like this, or somebody actually created? Because, as you said, it's a human infection. It's a human pass on to human being. So the question that we're asking is actually a natural virus just happened, pops up, or actually somebody created in your expertise as a doctor?
We live the human body as you're sitting there now. We have friends, we call them, that can go rogue. So we've got bacteria that live with us in our body, without which would actually have problems. Yeah, same as viruses. Yeah, the human body is equipped to deal with viruses. You see what I mean? If you get a cold, clearly the body copes with it. Very few and far between the people who get admitted for a cold, not unless you have underlying health problems like the chest, the heart. Are you with me? So you cope with it, and that's why you don't have a vaccine that would, sort of completely take care of it, because the virus has an ability to mutate, to change itself. It can replicate so many times without you even noticing it. So if somebody tells you that this is a biochemical weapon or whatever, then clearly count me out of that. I didn't go to medical school for anybody to come and feed me arrant nonsense. It's rubbish. I would not tolerate it, and I would not encourage that. This is a situation whereby the viruses exist in their own habitat. Yeah, they sometimes are within animals. If man doesn't interfere with that habitat, the chances of you contracting that is very, very slim. Look at all the viral outbreaks. Look at Ebola, how it started. Yeah, you look at it how it started, you would know that it was because man interfered with the natural habitat of these bats and whatever wild vermins and reptiles and all that, that they actually started it. And then it became one thing or another. One led to another. Likewise, all of the viruses and the bacteria and the fungi, they coexist with us. So, until we interfere with them, they don't interfere with us. We live amicably. Sometimes we depend on them and they depend on us. Like I say, a virus would only be alive, usually, inside of a living body. Once it gets out of the living body, it dies. Do you see what I mean? So if somebody tells you this is a bacterial or viral biological weapon or whatever, well, count me out of that.
Wow. So obviously, brothers and sisters, as we educate in our family worldwide, because we've seen these videos worldwide. Some people saying they did this on purpose to killing the European people here in Europe. Some people say all sorts of things. So that's why it's important for us to really educate ourselves, hear from the experts. Just so we can learn from each other and analyzing this situation, and also prepare ourselves of this wave, because it's still on, and we cannot ignore this situation, but we have to prevent it. So go straight to the United States. What is your take about this media? Because obviously this mass media really terrifying people's mind. What is your take in the United States? Because obviously we've seen a lot of video come from the United States and different part of Europe. People so terrified. So what is your take about this, about the media?
Well, the media is doing their job. They always do their job. They're always going to be on top of whatever is going on, whatever the latest and the greatest is. And then they're always going to leave off part of what's the most effective part of taking care of a situation. Even though they might know it or they've heard of it, they're not going to reveal that information. They're going to leave that up for other people to disseminate and then to discuss. Everything is open for discussion these days, instead of being honest and upfront. Just like I discussed a few seconds ago when I was talking about this virus. The virus is very serious. Don't take me lightly on that point at all. I'm just stating the obvious and the facts. The facts and the obvious is we do have a lot of mucous membrane in our body, and that's the way our body functions. That's why we have saliva in our body and stuff. And not disrespecting the doctor or anything. I know you have a great education. So do I. I do have several PhDs myself. I just don't have one exactly in medicine, but I am a medical specialist. If you want to, so be it. I don't think anyone wants to challenge my information or the knowledge that I have acquired over the years. But the media is taking things and they're utilizing it to make money. That's what the media does. It makes money on every front it can, and so that's what the media are doing. They're reciprocating the information that they get in order to utilize it in order to gain more viewers. That's the way they make their money.
Wow. So moving back in the UK, some question to Dr. Kamara. Obviously, we've seen prime ministers, presidents come out really advising people to stay home and giving the advices, but we've seen the media, the mainstream media twisting information, manipulating. What is your take about, because that's why people so terrified, people panic, people going to the supermarket buying a bunch of food and water and everything. So what is your take about the media? They're doing a great job to really educating people worldwide, or they're really twisting all the information, as we've seen all these short clips on YouTube and WhatsApp. What is your take about the mainstream media worldwide, Doctor?
Well, I mean, as I say, everybody is entitled to take on board what they wish to. We're all adults. We've got brains that were given to us by the Almighty, and therefore we need to use them. It's as simple as that. I don't think I'll look at something that I think doesn't sit well with me, that I'm uncomfortable with, and then take that as gospel truth. It doesn't work like that. Such business of purporting that this is biochemical warfare and all that is what is actually giving rise to this problem that is, a situation whereby we're committing suicide. We're just killing our people. We need to refrain from doing that. The media is doing a good job at actually educating people, telling them what it is. There are specifically designated channels, designated, if you like, programs to actually get people to understand that, look, this is what it is. Like I say, you have daily briefings from the government, and as I said, because it's a fluid situation, they're making the decisions. They may be slow in taking those decisions. Like, for example, we were all expecting this to have happened a week ago, but then, as I say, I suppose they have to go by what they've been advised. But this is spiraling out of control, and therefore, it is important to keep in touch and actually get people to understand what this is about. Therefore, we can depend on the media to actually sensitize the population, educate the population, get them to actually adhere to the needs, to the advice from the specialist. And that is the only way we can actually combat this deadly disease. Otherwise, we're in for a big problem. And I tell you what, if we're not careful, we will lose a lot of lives because of this kind of attitude. I can tell you that this problem has not peaked at all. You're looking at probably the latter end of the summer. So this is not peaked at all. So if people are thinking that we're in for a joke, well, I tell you what, think again. This is big. We have to rise up. We have to rise to it. We have to fight it in order to actually gain control. Otherwise, it will envelop us and we'll lose a lot of lives. So please listen to what the media says. If you're listening to YouTube and they're telling you this is a biochemical warfare and all that, well, you choose that. But I can tell you, if you listen to me, I can tell you that you need to wake up to the issue that this is a deadly virus. It hasn't peaked. It probably will peak in the next 12 to 14 weeks. and then it will start tapering off. So what we need to do is try and combat it now that we know we've got the necessary information. As I say, something as simple as washing your hands will save a life. And if you get people to understand that, it is definitely a lifesaver. It's a game changer. I tell you why. Because this virus has got 3 parts to it. Yeah? The 3 parts, one of them has got a lipid base, which is oil. And oil and soap water doesn't mix, as you know. So if you wash your hands with soap and water, the likelihood of you getting that oil-based part of the virus to carry it forward to somebody else is very minimal. And that is why it's important to remember that, look, personal hygiene could not come at a better time than now.
Wow, wow, wow. Obviously, brothers and sisters, as you hear from the doctor, and then also to one of our special guests, one of the special guests in the United States as well, to really understand and also give the right information to our people worldwide about this coronavirus. It is important that we stay calm. It's really important that we not be terrified and listen to the right information. So that's our main focus. So we understand a lot of brothers and sisters are losing their loved ones, but we gotta remain calm. So last question to our doctor and then also to our elder in the United States. What can we do as a family, as an African people worldwide? Because obviously we understand this is about the humanity, but as our countries in Africa, because a lot of our people in Africa, they don't have access to the health system. They don't have access to the right information. So the last question to doctor and then our special guest: what can we do as an African family worldwide? Dr. Kamara, you go first.
Well, what we're doing now is a good thing. As I said, the media is a powerful tool. Yeah? When we faced the Ebola, even in the villages way up in the provinces in Africa, they had people who actually spoke their lingua franca, if you like, or the languages, the tribal languages. They spoke them, and so obviously they understood them better. The impact of that is immeasurable. It's as simple as that. So you've got somebody who uses either a loudspeaker, or maybe trips, or maybe, if you like, short films, or maybe broadcasts and things to not touch. And that's one thing I remember even my elderly father telling me not to touch. So handshake, social distancing, yeah, washing your hands regularly, okay. And if you're symptomatic, isolate yourself. These are all things that would save lives. And as I said, remember, the mortality of this virus is 2%. So we can combat that and we can handle that. The mortality of all the viruses that I know, like MERS virus from the Middle East, 35%. Yeah? The only problem is there's no cure for this thing because we haven't got any treatment. What we do is just, if you like, symptomatic treatment. We treat the symptoms and that's it. So anybody who is high risk should be advised to self-isolate, i.e. not get exposed to a situation whereby you'll contract this illness and then you fare off badly. So it is important to remember, education is the way forward to combating this illness.
Wow, wow. Elder United States, same question to you. What can we do as African family worldwide? Because we understand the measure, some of these European countries, they're taking measures and inform their own people. But it is important for us to really also inform our African people worldwide. So what is your advice you can give it to the entire African family worldwide? 2 minutes.
Well, if you go outside and if you think you're being exposed to the virus, first thing you want to do when you go home is you want to take your clothes off. You want to take a nice hot shower. You want to absorb as much hot water as you can. So you want to take the hottest shower you can take. And then if you still think you've been infected or something, what you want to do is you want to start a regimen of trying to prevent this thing from growing in your system. By doing what I said earlier, and getting the boiling hot water and stuff, and trying to utilize and try to combat this virus as much as you can. If you don't have to go outside please don't do so at this time. Like the doctor is saying, take his word. I don't know about that at this time. I think that we have to use our own common sense, and the ones of us that have common sense, because common sense is not common for a lot of people as well. So we need to make sure that we use the best information that we have before us, and that's not sitting around and wait to get sick. It's trying to prevent the entrance of this disease from entering into our lungs and into our cavities. So we want to post as much information as we can, the most professional information that we can, the most up-to-date information as we can, in order to try to prevent this virus from getting any larger or spreading.
Wow.
Because like he said, this virus is very, very serious, because if it wasn't, it would not be considered as a pandemic. But I think the information that I have given will help us along the way, with the information that's before us, going back to the olden days to today. This cure works. There's no way around it. We cannot deny it, and it's here. And another thing is the doctor saying until the next 4 to 6 weeks. That's when it starts to getting hot outside. So when it starts getting hot outside, again, this virus does not live in a heated environment. It only lives in a cool environment. That's when the spores grow. It grows, and it gets a hold to its host, and then it grows and the spores spread. That's the only way it survives.
Wow, wow, wow. Brothers and sisters from all over the world, as you saw the commentary from our Dr. Kamara, Mohamed Kamara, and our elder in the United States. But we're going to keep the information to our family worldwide. I'm sure brothers and sisters from all over the world have been recording this show, spread it to different countries in Africa, because we understand this virus now. There's a lot of cases in Africa now as we speak. And it is important, as you can see in the map right now, there's different countries already in Africa that's been obviously going to quarantine. It is important for us to really educate one another and understanding. It's a serious situation that affected the entire planet, and we need to remain calm, and we need to pass on the right information to all of our brothers and sisters all over the world. Don't panic.
Can I say something?
Yes. We got 2 minutes more. Go ahead.
Now, I need you to just understand the magnitude of the problem we're facing. Now, usually, things like religious gatherings are usually, if you say, exempt. But as things stand, even the Friday prayers today, nationally in the UK, was suspended until further notice. Can you imagine that? Exams for would-be doctors who would be qualifying, students who will be qualifying to become doctors, have been suspended. Conferences have been suspended. Yeah, meetings have been suspended. Exams, as I say, have been suspended. And even the doctors who are currently on rotation, their future rotation, which would have been in the next week or two, has been suspended. They remain in the same place where they have been for the past 4 months or 6 months. So it just goes to show you, these are all measures. It just tells you the magnitude or the size of the problem we're dealing with. As I said, do not underestimate this virus. However, don't panic. As I say, the mortality rate is 2%. Yeah, we can combat this. The leaders in Africa have to rise to the challenge, have to rally the forces, have to rally all the troops and get them engaged. And I guarantee you, Africa is probably the least of the continents that is affected as we speak. Therefore, for us to maintain that, we need to actually act wise, act quickly, and act in a timely and orderly fashion. And I'm sure Africa will not suffer like it did when Ebola broke out.
Wow. So as you heard, the brothers and sisters from all over the world, keep in tune with Radio Diamond. Obviously, we're going to be posting this information on social networks such as YouTube and Facebook, just so we can reach out the family worldwide to really understand it. It's not time to play game. but it's a time to remain calm. Don't go out there in the supermarket trying to act like you can buy everything, trying to act like a hungry lion looking for meat to eat. Slow down, save food to the others. Don't be too greedy right now. Save food to the others. Don't be in panic totally, as the doctor says. We have to be worried about it. We have to pay attention to our surroundings. Really important. But remain calm, because otherwise you might gonna put somebody in danger. And it's about time for us to stick together as a family, and then stand in solidarity for those who actually in need. Because right now, obviously, as the doctor says, the hospital is full of a lot of people, but don't go to the hospital if you feel like you have this this coronavirus. Stay home and then follow the advice of all the expertise that giving you the right information. Peace and blessings of Akwabo here at Radio Diamond. We're going to keep you updated with all the information that goes on around the world, especially in our African continent as well, and our African community too. So stay tuned. Alpha Kwabo, we keep you informed, and bless and love to the entire family worldwide. That's what it's about. We out, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.